be talking this long.
Getting dry there.
Yeah, but you know, I didn't really choose to be decommissioned that way. I didn't really feel if we went to college that we had much chance to, as individuals, to plan on coming home. I think for the first time, I really realized the Lord is really survived you to now, and you've been through a lot. And there's a lot of other guys got land on that beach, so you're going to have to do your part to fix it. So we just took for granted that we were going to be sacrificed.
You were in the process of getting ready.
Yes. And mentally, you had to get prepared. And he said, I remember he said, the shore battery will be fired almost straight at us because we're going to be in that close. The main battery will be dealing with those guns higher up on the elevation there, but 5 inch is going to have to take care of the shore battery. Will be able to reach us. We figure we'll be in 800 or 1,000 yards. And that don't give you much chance to get away. So we know we're going. So when the atomic bomb did fall, Dr. Johnson, I would admit that I was glad. But if I had it to do with the terror and the awesome devastation that could bring to our earth, I've wished many times that it's never been developed. Really, I have. Although I was relieved when they dropped it. I haven't changed my feeling about this. In college, I said the same thing. I was asked by a philosophy professor here when I was a student, do you believe that America will use the atomic bomb to save our allies in Europe? And I was the only one in the class that said we will. We have to. We can't shirk duty. We promise. And as we left the room, he put his arm around my shoulder. He says, I thank you for your thoughts on this, because I didn't know how the class would go. All the class said, no, we would. But you see in war, the military, the Navy, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that says, a country that has no regard for its past will do little to be remembered in the future. Army or Navy that doesn't accomplish its goals and has no traditional values in order to do that, you're not going to be remembered. That's why when I teach history, I feel like I'm passing on not about me, but about my forefathers, my fellow man. It's like this honor for Uncle Troy. I'm not really pushing Uncle Troy, although he's the man that died. He deserves the honor. But we're talking about many just like him. We don't even know how they died. And America right now needs a leader. And I think maybe our president is a great leader that we have right now. And let's hope he is, because the world looks like we might have some peace and liberty for all men. I'm for that. I know you're for that.
What happened to the Colorado? You heard that the bombs had gone off.
Yes.
And
okay. When they went off, quite soon, all capital ships in the Navy must provide a landing force. The Colorado, being one of those capital ships at Okinawa, was told to prepare a landing force to land at Yokosuka Naval Base in Japan. I was just one of the few E-6s in the Navy on that ship that I had 160 men. My division was 160. I was the boss under a commissioned officer. I dashed right back and volunteered to take a platoon of men ashore. was part of my qualification. Do you know that my best buddy was ready to kill me? He says, you idiot. You get through the war alive, and now you volunteer to go on there. You don't know if there's going to be resistance. I'll never see you again. I said, well, I volunteered now. I thought you would. I thought he would be my first one back there. He was a big old boy from Missouri, strong as an ox. But he didn't. So here I have the 3rd Platoon of the landing force of USS Colorado to land. I know they call it Yokosuka now, but they call it Yokosuka then. That's where I was going to land with my platoon. So MacArthur, that brave man, flew in there on his plane. I think they called it Baton. Landed in their unarmed. Winston Churchill says that's the bravest deed he'd ever known a flag officer to perform. We didn't have to land. They didn't resist. But let me tell you, when those Japanese destroyers steamed at us with muzzles depressed, breech mechanisms removed, we were fully at general quarters, ammunition, powder, the whole works. I'll tell you, the Navy figured they could. We were standing at the ready. And I was real glad that the Japanese didn't fight us. It was weird. Hey, the Navy's in that harbor. And that Japanese destroyer steamed right up to us and let a person off on our ship. I don't know if it was what his purpose was, or if he was American or what. We didn't get to see everything. But we were standing ready on this gun. And here at Mount Fujiyama there.
Must have been something.
It really was. So we got to go ashore one time. I would have got ashore twice, but I'll say this for me. They put out the order here, the petty officers can go ashore as long as we're here, 2 sections. But that wasn't going to let the non-rated men go at all. In the 5th Division, I said, every man in this division going ashore. I don't care if he's a boot. He has as much right to go ashore. Hey, those petty officers hated me. How can you do this when every other division just said, that's because they fought the war too. So I only got ashore one time. And I could have went several times, 3 times. Well, that's where I stood. I stand right there again. Those kids love me. Whether the petty officer did or not. When I left that ship, I hate to tell you this, I had been none. 0. You can't wake a man up in the middle of the night 2 or 3 times and send him on a working party or working all night when he's been on the gun crew. No sleep. You can't do that job and make a guy like you. Somebody has to do it. I wasn't really physically man enough to back up those orders, but nobody knew that. I knew that. See, I went in the ring there with those guys. I found out just because you're from Tennessee. I went in the Navy thinking from Tennessee, everybody set up and take notice. They don't. They don't. I really had that idea. Hey, man, I wore it right up there. Hey, I have guys getting in this. They going. Tennessee. That should tell you something. It didn't tell all I knew.
It didn't tell them much.
No, really. Golly, my dad must have been proud of it. He must be responsible for that. But I really thought the whole world would think, oh, you're from Tennessee, man. You're really tough. Not so.
What did you see when you went ashore in Japan?
Oh, Dr. Johnson had this something I never told us so. I saw such devastation. This isn't where the atomic bomb. This is firebombing or something. Devastated. Absolutely devastated. But you know, I went ashore with soap and cigarettes. I treated the Japanese so gentle and so friendly that, we were really scolded by the command for our fraternization with an enemy. I mean, no peace has been, they've surrendered, but it's not in writing yet. They're strong enough to start blowing up a bunch of people. You should see us over there. I even have a picture taken there at my second light's gun, first light's gun. Hey, where is Buddy Buddy? Isn't that terrible? Why are we like that? I had no, of all of our men at the bayoneted and everything, I didn't even remember that.
Well, the people you saw weren't the people who had done
No.
that.
And I wrote this story here in Dr. Howe's class. He had me write on something about the Chinese display in the World's Fair. And I remember something that happened. It was a man coming up the road there. We were in Yokohama, Liberty. And I guess he thought the Americans would attack him with us on Liberty. And he was coming up the road saying, me Chinese, me Chinese, me not fight you. And Dr. Howe got such a, that's really right. That's what he said. I wasn't going to fight anybody. Golly, well, one Japanese man took me in his, it was covered with tin. He just made it out of scraps he could pick up. And he invited me in and wanted me to make myself at home. Do I say everything on this tape? He wanted to share his life. So he sent his beautiful young daughter away. And he offered to, and I said, no, I couldn't do that. I could do that with your daughter, but I can do it your way. So I just gave him soap and cigarettes. You see, I never felt in all of my time that you should compromise a man's castle or forcibly inflict your ways on another person. And I still feel that way. And that's why I'm a believer in the right to bear arms. I bear lots of arms in my house, but they're not to bother people. They are to bother people if they should attack me. No. They're there for sporting, and all my kids shoot guns. My daughters shoot 357. So
How long were you ashore in Japan?
I only got ashore there that one time, and I believe Dr. Johnson that we were over there that day from probably around 10 o'clock to around 5.
Oh, just part of one day.
Yes, that's all. Not overnight. Now, the geisha girls that we'd always heard about were locked up. MacArthur had ordered them locked up due to an idea that was prevalent that they were diseased, for some of them at least. So we observed geisha girls behind bars. We gave them soap and cigarettes to prove to us that they were built the same as Caucasian women. Isn't that crazy? We did it. So I might as well tell you.
Turned out they were.
The same. Big lie. We made it all the time. Oh, golly, I felt all those lies. And you know, they were, we had no hard feelings with them. I sent the rest of my division, mostly non-rated, ashore the next day. Every one of my division of 160 men, every one of them beach. So they could say they had been to Japan. It cost me and my petty officers time over. Hey, I'll do it again. You see, when you see everybody does something, it's going to be criticized. And I don't think I did everything right. I did everything the way I felt.
Did you happen to see any of the American prisoners who had been captured by the Japanese?
Okay, that's good. I passed that up completely. We took on many prisoners and transferred some of our guys to other ships who didn't have enough time to go back to the States. And with the prisoners, all kinds of them.
Oh, really?
In my division, as a division petty officer, I had to give a report to the executive officer how many I could sleep. I had a lot of prisoners. That's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. Now, if you You wanted to be friendly to the Japanese. As soon as those prisoners come aboard, you didn't want to be friendly anymore. Starved to death. Skin and bone. And those men were so humble. They had Japanese money and they wanted to give you something. I think I only have about one piece of that left. I'll give it to people. They were so thankful to be alive. And there's so much on the verge of dying. They can't eat much because they've been starved so long. That was pathetic. You know, I haven't remembered that until you brought it up.
Did you lose any of them that came
Not
aboard?
while I was there. Before long, I had enough time over there to be transferred back to the United States. And somebody who hadn't been there was sent aboard a boatswain first class. That's what I was. By the name of Yukonavich, a real professional sailor. I mean, by that, he is real sharp in tying knots and stuff, but apparently he hadn't been in combat because he was going to have to stay there, and I was transferred to the USS West Virginia.
Oh, so you had to say goodbye to the Colorado?
I had to say goodbye after I had it all made, you know. I had to get my stuff ready and get off of there in a hurry. Gosh, I went off there leaving all my souvenirs and asking guys to mail it to me. You know, they never do. They will, but they won't, see. So I got off with nothing, no souvenirs. Got on to West Virginia, sat there a few days. Let me back down. They made us steam out in the water and transfer to a destroyer and then to the West Virginia. Isn't that a crazy? That's the Navy way. You get a little more sea time that way. I transferred onto the destroyer onto the West Virginia. We're still in the area. See why we did that? I don't know. We could have done it by motor launch, but my gunnery officer came to me, Lieutenant Mute. He had gone to lieutenant commander and was now gunnery officer, USS Colorado. So having been my 5th Division officer, he knew me. He knew me good. And he come down as I left, to get on the destroyer to leave the Colorado. And he says, McGill, you have done so good in the Navy. You should stay. You'll be a chief in no time. I had a good record. My record was clean. And I says, Commander, there isn't enough money in the Treasury Department to keep me in the Navy. It's a quote, word for word. And golly, I thought about that many times. I'll get back to Knoxville in a minute. But while I was aboard the Colorado, I was summoned to the executive officer's stateroom. Just about the time I made E4, that's coxswain, boatswain mate 3rd now, but it's coxswain then. That's E4, that's your first step in the officer. The executive officer sent for me. Hey, the executive officers don't have you in their stateroom. What have I done? You know, you can wear a hat in the presence of an officer in the stateroom if you have a duty belt on. And you don't salute with a hat off in the Navy ever. That's why you have a duty belt on and a hat on. You can salute in his stateroom. I didn't have a duty belt, so I had to have my hat off. And Bowers, Commander Bowers, he said, at least I had to stay standing. He's got my record. I see you're from Knoxville, Tennessee. Yes, sir. Where's your dad from? Sevierville, Tennessee. What area there? I said, where's Valley? He said, so am I. I know you're there. He says, McGill, you got a very fine record. If I ever talk to you again, I will deal with you severely. In other words, he gave me a strict warning because he knew my dad. That's true. If I talk to you again, I'll deal with you severely. So the executive officer I'm fighting with knew my dad all this time. So see, everybody don't play politics. That didn't help me any. He just happened to find out I was from Tennessee. We had Otis Columbus Reed on the Maryland. He was a good buddy of mine. He ended up on the Maryland from Lake City. I can't find anybody ever heard of it. So I had to give him up. But anyway, now as we ride that West Virginia now. I'm on the West Virginia, leaving Japan. I'm glad the war's over. Looking forward to getting home, really. And we're steaming to Pearl Harbor on the West Virginia. I'm a West Virginia man now. One big difference in West Virginia had gone through that modernization, and she was a beautiful ship. She really looked good. She had the dual purpose 538s, and the old cage masts were gone. She's our sister. Ride that baby out of Pearl Harbor then, and right on to San Diego. And from San Diego, they didn't give us time to do anything. I had friends there I wanted to call up, didn't have time. If you're going to accept government transportation, you got to go straight home. No breaks. No taking a side trip. I had to go straight home. I had a girlfriend in Fort Worth, went through there on the train, couldn't even call her up, didn't have time. So we just went straight to it. But in all the war, and it was a lot of it, and a lot of things happened. You know, you've heard me say this before. I feel like I was very fortunate. I saw guys get killed that was just great, young man. Christian man. And that means a lot because the guy that says he don't believe, I won't spend much time talking to him. I'm not going to tell him how to believe. But if you've really been in the thick of it, you'll start believing. If you don't believe. I see a lot of guys change their mind when those bombs start falling. So you see, why even put on that phony front? When I see you stand up there and teach a class, and some of your young people really are interested, it really does me good. That pays the whole thing. You know what? And when you allow participation, it's really good, Dr. Johnson. I would give anything in the world to be teaching.
Yeah, I understand that. So you're not right now.
I could do such a good job.
Oh, I know that. I was talking with John Finger about that not too long ago.
Bless his heart. He didn't give me a good grade either, but I love him. He's a great professor.
How, when you got home, what was it like coming back home?
Unbelievable. Everybody's gone. The guys are here. The guys who were your best buddies, you don't even know where they are. Some of them met girls, gone, and everybody seemed to be different. I know in myself, I went from a young man. I talk more like a middle-aged man. I was very mature.
You had 160 people under you, and you were,
That's
what,
right.
23 years old? 24?
I told them everything to do, when to eat, when to go potty. Everything was made up. The watch quarter in Stationville told them every place to be at all times. I wouldn't play politics. When I took over that division from a real policymaker, but he wasn't a very good man, nobody thought I could handle it. So I've still got the notes at home. My first orders from muster, I says, as I run this division, you will never hear me curse you. I don't use that language. I have, but I don't want to base my directions on profanity. And I says, from now on, everybody will come to quarters in the uniform today. Regulation flows. That's real touchy with these guys. Got a lot more time than I have, but they aren't the boss. If the men who are E2s and E3s have to wear regulation clothes, everybody will. Well, some of those guys who thought they were senior to me, get on there a lot longer than me, come with non-regulation. I need to look at it. Anybody coming with non-regulation clothes tomorrow will be put on report. That terminated all that. We all had everybody in those clothes that don't fit. See, the captain didn't like those cut-in. And I know what it is to wear tight-fitting, beautiful. I had a nice figure too. I had my bell bottoms made special in Hawaii, but the captain said no regulation. So we had these first class petty officers who figured it didn't apply to them. They got away with it with my predecessor because he played politics for power. Not me. I don't play politics. Everybody's completely the same. I did those things and just made myself a bunch of enemies that would have thrown me over the side probably. I never thought about that, but I guess that's been done.
Happened. When you came back, though, you were different. They were different.
Oh, really different, Dr. Johnson. I remember getting together with John Grigsby and Bill Jones, and John and I went dancing quite a bit, and we, of course, had developed a taste for beer. I wasn't a smoker or a drinker when I left. I don't say my dad bought me a beer the day I left. We don't allowed to do that. And I tried to keep myself in good physical shape in order to be able to fight. How about that? Long-winded. I was no great football player, but I was rugged. And I mean the team. But these guys, gradually we started going different ways. And the girl I wanted to marry was daughter of a Baptist minister. She went to Carson Newman. And then when my buddy went to Carson Newman without checking it out with me, then I went to Maryville. And the only reason I went to Maryville, I wanted to be up there, but he didn't stick to his agreement. So I went to Maryville, played football over there, played fullback for Lloyd Honecker. And his son was my competition. So I got it. But then I played all during spring practice. But going to school was one of my milestones. Walter. I have four. I've got three brothers living now. My sister. When I quit school, it crushed him. He says, "You'll never go back. You'll never go back if you quit." Well, many years later, after I retired from the Navy, that was still ringing in my ears. You know that his statement, each time I got discouraged at the University of Tennessee, I said, "Never go back. I'm going to do it for you, buddy." And I did.
What made you go back in the Navy then?
Okay, that's a good one. I said I would never go back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I went to Boeing. I left here in August of 1946. And I went out there and stayed with my buddy, my best buddy in the Navy, who was wounded the same day. They had to take him off, so I lost track of him. But he was living in Everett, Washington. I went out there and lived with him, worked in his service station. It was a family business, worked in the cabinet shop, no pay, just a place to live. And I got tired of that. I went to work for Boeing. And then, by golly, would you know, I got laid off in that big strike at Boeing. Then I took a temporary job, and then I married. I moved to Montana. My wife got pregnant. I said, my child, my boy, has got to be born in Tennessee. Oh, her folks were crushed. And they're related to the Braggs. Her name was Bragg. I said, he's got to be right there where Bragg and Longstreet. Hey, boy, they cried, and I took my wife to the doctor, and he says, Bill's he's a smart guy. You'll make it to Tennessee, all right. But we almost had that baby in the Teton, so we hit bad roads in my brand new Mercury, and she was having her pain. I had to stop. All I could find was a building with no heat in it, no nothing. I built a fire in there, and she was in there laying on the bed. I was afraid that baby was going to come. And I was out there gathering wood. I think there's a big bear out there handing me sticks. Really, it was scary out there. Well, anyway, we're heading to Tennessee from where I went out west and worked for Boeing. Coming here, a baby is born right here at Fort Sanders, the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And so I didn't name her Braxton Bragg McGill. That was going to be the name. I named her Elizabeth Earl McGill. And that cat was beautiful. But by the time she was 6 weeks old, her mother was giving me so much anti-Tennessee static. I had to take her back home. I took her home to give her back to her mother. You know, I was